Web3, welcome. Now, I've already mentioned Web3 in my vlogs on World Wide Web and NFTs. In fact, I think I once called it Web5 by mistake. My apologies. But this vlog is going to solely focus on Web3 and what it's all about. So, sorry if I repeat myself a bit in what I've said in other vlogs, but it is all connected. What is Web3? Well, that needs to be answered, doesn't it? Web 1 was characterised by these sort of liberation ideals of the early, forgive me, nerds, I think they don't mind being called it though, in Silicon Valley. When the web was slow, it was frustrating, but fun. Web 2 was when the corporates took over. The web's now fast, convenient, but no substitute for the old face-to-face way we used to conduct business and dealt with money. As it's developed, internet security has made even the simplest of transactions increasingly difficult. And these things are only going to get worse with Web 3. Web 3 applies the blockchain to the web. Now, this was originally designed to solve the banking crisis. So yeah, it's all about cryptocurrency, providing the rich, probably the super rich, with a means of spending their digital cryptocurrency that's stuck on their computers. Indeed, whilst few common people have become rich from cryptocurrency, isn't its real value as a tool, being a tool for the super rich to avoid national legislation? Accessibility. Elon Musk, and forgive me Elon because I rather like you, but he suggested that Nigerian farmers are using cryptocurrency to overcome the fact that they cannot access traditional banks. And well, it just so happens that I visited Nigeria, and I live in a country that is not dissimilar to Nigeria, but far more advanced. And I have to say that I find this story absolutely incredible. Now, I'm not suggesting there aren't one or two farmers who do it, but the idea that Nigeria is full of farmers using cryptocurrency, I don't believe it for 1 minute. And of course, what it hides is the real issue that Nigerian farmers are so poor that commercial banks aren't interested in them. They're not interested in offering them services, and that's the real issue. Now, I myself have avoided cryptocurrency, largely because I don't trust it, but also because my internet connection is unreliable and very slow, particularly when uploading. It's all to do with compression rates and the fact that it's a satellite, etc. But you know, I struggle. In fact, I'm often timed out on many transactions because of how slow it is to fill out online forms, especially when multiple servers are checking my personal details. Now, I was recently attempting to book 4 flights, so flights for me and the family, to Bangkok over Christmas and the New Year. And I found a suitable flight with AirAsia, who I regularly use. And I kept inputting our passport details, which you have to now on AirAsia. Before you can even pay for your ticket, you have to put in your passport details. But because I suppose mine was a British passport and it was connecting to multiple servers, it timed out many times before it would validate it. Anyway, after 45 minutes, I got a message that the fare was no longer available and it had been timed out. So, you know, those of us who don't have the sort of connectivity that you have in large Western cities, even this Web 2 technology, it's just becoming completely unusable. Now you might say, well, use your phone, but not only do we not have 5G, our 3G connection is often non-existent. So, I've just avoided cryptocurrency. And, despite Indonesia embracing digital technology and rapidly moving to a cashless society, it simply doesn't work where I live. The infrastructure isn't here. I mean, not least, even if there was 5G and what have you, the vast majority of people are too poor to have a recent smartphone. I mean, they've all got phones, of course, but not phones that would support this sort of thing. And far from offering administrative alternatives, the effect is to simply disenfranchise the rural poor, which is why I find Elon Musk's comments so disingenuous. Now, those promoting Web3 are highly active in resisting legislation and arguing against legislation and for freedom. But despite that, we do need to be concerned about the potential for governments to use their own digital currencies as a means of controlling us. Incredible though it would have been only a few years ago that previous Liberal Canada actually froze the bank accounts of the Canadian truckers who were protesting. And I'm pretty sure I might stand to be corrected, but they still haven't been unfrozen, despite the protests being long since over. So it's not simply about preventing us from exercising our human rights to protest, but it's also being used already, used as a punishment for those of us who exercise our human rights. Now, these things are only going to increase far, far more with Web3. Security. Certainly, Web3 will streamline financial transactions, largely because it, as they say, cuts out the middleman. But unlike me, most people really aren't reliant on international banking. Having said that, my UK bank, RBS, has closed my account. And with international travel becoming increasingly difficult and indeed expensive, it appears to be a solution to a problem that I no longer have. And now I'm sure that these problems are increasing as a result of internet security, but they can only logarithmically increase with Web3. Not least as when I'm in my mountain home, as I say, my internet is unreliable and my phone signal often non-existent. And increasingly I find there is no alternative. I'm told to go to an internet cafe when the nearest one is sort of 50 kilometres away. Down a mountain range takes over 2 hours. Furthermore, national and international legislation is really yet to keep up with this technology. Now, a part of that is because those promoting Web3 are firmly against any legislation, and very vocal in their opposition and very active in lobbying governments not to legislate. So whilst on the face of it there appears to reduce security risk, inevitably fraud is going to increase. This means that we will find transactions even more difficult to perform, probably involving facial recognition, and I'm sure many of you have cursed your mobile phone for not digitally recognising you, or even curse those companies that demand a picture of you as a security measure. This means that we will find transactions increasingly difficult to perform, but also the potential for scams is much, much more significant. Now, I previously indicated that I see cryptocurrency as a huge Ponzi scheme. Although I suppose, if I am saying that, to be fair, the same could be said for all currency. And whilst I might not trust governments, I trust them more than these anonymous figures that are behind cryptocurrency, whoever they may be. I've also argued that NFTs are simply a scam. So Web3 just seems to be increasing the potential for scams and frauds. Indeed, whilst the added security around Web3 seems impressive, the increased rewards for fraud make hacking all the more seductive. In quantum computing, I've argued that whilst it makes encryption much more sophisticated, how long before this technology reaches organised crime, or even crime sponsored by states, their security services, or wealthy individuals? But it can only increase the use of malware, and maybe even traditional blackmail, seeking to get around this enhanced security, because the rewards, what they can take, is so much greater. Worse still, blockchain technology consumes massive, enormous, mind-blowing amounts of electricity. Could this be the real reason why we're being asked to save energy? And the massive increase in energy cost and reliant industries, and costs of reliant industries like aviation. The economy. It should be apparent that during the boom and busts of economies, that wealth is redistributed from the poor to the rich. But the developments in Web3 only increase the likelihood of this boom and bust. Now, whilst I don't wish to put forward a hard monetarist argument, speculation in cryptocurrency is an obvious bull and bear market. But if as a result of Web3, cryptocurrency will become more important, then the boom and busts are bound to get even more severe. Of course, governments are seeking to curtail the use of digital currencies and introduce their own digital currencies. But as I've said, those in favour of Web3 are very actively lobbying against such developments. I don't know who will win. I really don't. And whilst there are few limits on the supply of fiat currency, the ability to make more digital currency at a keystroke makes inflation even more likely. Now, I know some of you are going to tell me, "Oh no, that's not possible with cryptocurrency. Bitcoin has a preset limit." You can change it with a keystroke. It can be changed with a keystroke. Do you really trust? Do you really trust anybody? Do you really trust any markets anymore? I certainly don't. I suppose my final concern about the economy is in taking away armies of administrative and managerial roles, particularly in banking and retailing. Unemployment has to rise. With the stripped out, we're creating a society of super rich and underemployed. But should we not now be asking, what's the purpose of an economy? What's the purpose of business? If not so that we can all share in God's bounty. Perhaps my greatest fear, however, is that Web3 only increases the opportunities for companies to take our personal data and then to sell it on to marketing companies. Indeed, our data would be available to all companies who build on the blockchain. Have you ever wondered why we're asked so many personal details when filling out forms for even the most mundane of transactions? You might not be concerned about losing your personal data, but when I tell you that your vaccination status has already been used to profile your compliance with government, I would suggest to you we need to be asking, where will it end? Summary. Well, I suppose to summarise, my concerns about Web3 are that it appears to be a solution designed by the super rich, allowing them to accumulate even more money from us and to hide it from national tax authorities. I can't really see any benefits for the common man in it whatsoever. Indeed, there are some very right-wing libertarians promoting Web3, as it underpins so many of their agendas. And as I say, they're lobbying governments on these agendas, very actively lobbying governments on these agendas. Their assumption appears to be that what is good for the super rich is good for humanity. But is it? Is it really? The common man, you and me, we're going to find our day-to-day activities even more difficult than they've already become. We'll have lost our privacy and we'll have become poorer, less able to do the things that we enjoyed in the past. Maybe you're okay even with this. You know, maybe you say, well, that's changed, it happens. I can understand you thinking that way. But what I would say is, have we ever been asked our opinions about this? Let alone to vote on what are going to be fundamental changes within society and how we live our lives. Changes so fundamental that, as I've previously argued, they're capable of bringing an end to civilization as we know it. Well, I hope you've got something from this. I dare say it's challenged many of you, but I hope you understand I've tried to be firm. Yes, some is conjecture, but I have tried to base this on what I can glean as being facts, and I've tried to be fair in presenting them. It's a part of the real magic of Java, which originally I thought would show rituals in Java and would only be cut every 2 or 3 months. But what I decided to do was expand the concept to talk about things of interest. So now it's happening every 2 or 3 days. So if you have enjoyed this, or at least got something from it, if you can pass a comment and hit the like button, and if you've really enjoyed it, if you could subscribe to my channel, hit the bell and you'll get future notifications. And what I want to do is thank you so much in anticipation for that.